recording. Well, hey, CFC friends and family, it is Jim Clark. It is Wednesday afternoon here with Pastor Brian, and we're going to do a little Q&A, talk a little bit about Sunday's message, dig into that a little bit, and ask some follow-up questions, and just kind of do our weekly midweek check-in and look forward to this weekend. How you doing today, Pastor Brian?
I'm good. I was a little torn today. I wasn't really sure whether or not to wear the Nationals shirt who never made the playoffs or my Cleveland Indians shirt who got killed last night. So frankly, the truth is I just grabbed the first thing I saw because, Zoom, the Zoom protocol, right? Right now you're at the office, but I don't know. You could be in shorts. No one would ever know.
No,
right?
I got pants on today. I rocked the pants. It was a little bit chilly this morning, so I went with pants just in case. So, but
yeah, there you go. So
I'm kind of surprised with all the Washington football fans in our audience that you didn't support the Browns today. So, but we can leave that alone so that you don't take a thumping later on in terms of records at the end of the year. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm a fan of the Browns, and everybody knows that. But anyone who's actually been a fan of the Browns knows that we have literally zero basis of which to ever brag about anything. And so while I'm ecstatic that we are, believe this or not, Jim, I don't know if you know this, this week is the first time since 2014,
wow.
2014 that the Browns have been over 500 at any point in the season, including 1-0. They've not won their first game for 7 years. So wow. I'm just going to say, listen, I'm happy to be able to drink out of my Browns victory coffee mug this week. It may be the last time I drink out of it this year. I don't know. But yeah. I believe we all can agree, though, we're all Browns fans this week because they're playing the Cowboys. So let's just hold it that way. Yeah.
Yep. You're exactly right. So let's jump into some content from the weekend. So this poodle noodle thing seems to be taking off and seems to be becoming part of the CFC conversation. So should we speak? So do you want to introduce us to your little friend?
Yeah, it's kind of odd how things sort of take off, but this is the poodle noodle. Actually, Crystal Neal there in our office, she actually created a poodle noodle, but the concept behind poodle noodle is just simply this. Pastor Mike brought it up, is that, when our vision is off in life, we can make a lot of mistakes. Like, for example, the word poodle and the word noodle are only one letter off, but they're completely different. And the analogy is certainly to the idea of the spiritual world that we live in. When our spiritual vision is off, we begin to see things in ways that are not how God intended. And then we begin to make certain assumptions from it. So it's just became this poodle noodle, this sort of, when statements become symbolic of other things, that's kind of what happened. It became symbolic of this, to which it kind of grew. And so I actually keep this poodle noodle not far from me, usually behind my computer or somewhere, so that it's a vivid reminder. It's, by the way, it's a real good practical spiritual discipline, I think, to put things in your life to remind us. So whether it's a dot on your watch, if you still have a watch, or a lot of people have the Apple Watch, maybe you just set an alarm for like every 30 minutes or something, just buzz your arm to remind you about how are you thinking and how you seeing Jesus. So it's just one that I do. And it came from, Mike's unbelievably ridiculous use of the word poodle noodle, which was good. It made me laugh. So it's good.
Yeah, it's just kind of funny how things begin to take on a life of their own sometimes, and it's a good life. So, but I just thought we'd point out that it has now moved from an abstract reality to a physical reality. So I don't know if Crystal's going to start making them. Maybe we'll sell them on the CFC website for Christmas or something. So
I did have someone approach me this Sunday to want to take a picture. I did. They approached me Sunday to want to take a picture because they want to animate the poodle noodle. So I'm not exactly sure if one of our more creative persons is going to come with an animated poodle noodle. There you go.
It's hard to tell.
We got Veggie Tales and we got poodle noodle. So we'll see.
It's taken on a life of its own. So let's assume that there's somebody listening today who has no idea what Reimagine is, and so they walked in on Sunday morning and heard about Reimagine, but yet they have limited idea of what that means. So if you were going to put Reimagine in a nutshell, how would you describe Reimagine, briefly to somebody who may not know or might be listening to it right now for the first time?
So Reimagine can best be said this way. Imagine a church, a group of people, us, being so transformed by the hope of Jesus Christ that the way that we live, it's transformative to the group of people around us we're called to. And so we just, we said, hey, we as a church, we've been called to that community right there at the intersection of Ashbrook and One Loudon in the northern part of Ashburn, Virginia there, where you are right now. I'm in the southern part of Ashburn right now, but that we need to be such a part of that community that we become indispensable. And so we said, reimagine what a church would be like that actually functioned that way. And so what we did was we just laid out a 3-part vision of what it looked like to build up our church, to reach out to the community, and then invite into the community. We kicked that off in January of this year, but as you know, COVID has changed a whole lot of things. So on Sunday, we just talked about how do we walk in faith when sometimes circumstances seem to try our faith? Because even though God said do this one thing, circumstances say, well, this can't be done, and there's this tension. And so I do encourage, if people want to find out more about it, they've never heard about it or refresh themselves about it, you can just go to the website, cfcwire.org/reimagine, and it'll be there. And I do believe it'll also be at the front of the webpage, rotating soon. If it's not today, you can check. And maybe, just maybe, Poodle Noodle stuff will be there, because I know there's at least one person listening, and that was Crystal Neal, who just texted me about the Poodle Noodle as she was listening. She said she'll make millions. So if Crystal makes millions off Poodle Noodle, she'll have to remember it's our intellectual property here at church, and she'll have to at least, give some of it back, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So how has COVID changed? Because we talked about Reimagine initially launching it back in October. I just got a reminder today on my calendar that it's been a year since we started that. So how has COVID changed the vision of Reimagine? How has COVID changed in the midst of the pandemic? Has it changed the application of Reimagine in terms of how we see Reimagine and how we're putting Reimagine into action as a church?
Yeah, the good thing about the vision of Reimagine, it's above any sort of COVID sort of thing. So the vision to be indispensable to the community around us, that hasn't changed at all. But I think what we've had to look at is how we originally thought that might be accomplished versus how that might be accomplished in a new reality of, discipling our church to grow better, to reach out to our community, invite into the community. We've had to move some things around in orders of priorities, right? Like, for example, it's very difficult to welcome in the community right now into our facility just because of COVID and because of people's concerns and all the things that go around it. So some of the things that we were going to do about that more upfront, we're kind of pushing to maybe later on till we find out what the new normal looks like. And then other things that we're pushing to the forefront really quickly about one of the 2 things I'm super passionate about is one, helping the widows, orphans, and the poor at a greater level of $1,000 a week, as also as helping our local schools at $1,000 a week. And our local schools and the widows, orphans, and the poor are in deep need, especially in this time. And so we've kind of moved some things around. And if you go to the website, it'll kind of show you what our big emphasis is, at least in this year. From when I say this year, I don't necessarily mean 2020. I mean from a standpoint of a church calendar year. And that for our church calendar runs from July 1st of 2020 this year to June 30th of next year, 2021.
Yeah. So let's talk about Sunday's message specifically. We talked about faith and change and adversity. What do you see? What's the connection between faith and adversity in terms of, what's the connection there? What do you see there?
Well, I think adversity always brings us to the end of ourselves and puts us at the place where we say, okay, where am I going to put my trust? And it's just this idea in our life. Are we going to put it in circumstances? Are we going to put it in ourselves? Or are we going to put it in God? Right. And by definition, I said on Sunday, that if we know all of the information, it's not a walk of faith. It's, a walk of logic, or it's just a walk of knowledge. And so those are some of the challenges. And so by definition, adversity, when it comes into our life, it begins to, make us stop and think and evaluate where we are putting our trust. Where is our thought process? And then as we do that, we have choices to make. And so the truth is that faith only grows actually when it brings us to the end of ourselves and pushes to Jesus. And one of the biggest places I've ever find I get to the end of myself is through adversity. Sometimes adversity is not that big a deal. Sometimes that adversity, seems like a really big deal, like COVID-19, or trying to do an interview where a whole bunch of people are talking behind you. That's a small sort of adversity that we sort of live in COVID. Some people don't know they're live right now on the internet. So they're all sending to them like, hey, yes, we will call you tomorrow, according to what I'm saying. So yeah, exactly.
There you go. So why do you think?
Listen, if we can't have fun and this in COVID, right? We might as well.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. So why do you think, and maybe you already answered this a little bit, why do you think faith grows so much in the midst of adversity?
Well, I think it's a bit of a trick question, because faith doesn't actually grow in the midst of adversity. It's the choice that we make, because there's lots of people whose faith don't grow in adversity. But I think faith grows so much. It is the greatest opportunity to grow in adversity. And where we're going to get. And again, it's because we come to the end of ourselves, because we can't necessarily, think about, Jim, some of the most difficult, challenging places in your life. You and I are very similar, right? We like to live by life by spreadsheet or life by strategic plan. But in some of the greatest challenging times of your life where you've seen God show up, I bet you your spreadsheet didn't have the answers that you needed.
Right.
Your plan didn't have the answers that you needed, right?
Yep.
And that's the reality of it, that adversity brings us beyond ourselves, our abilities. And we recognize, hey, let's just be honest. We were never really in control in the first place. God's always been in control, right? So if we have a spreadsheet, it's because he let us know the spreadsheet, right? If we have a plan, because he let us know it.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why there's the opportunity. And at that point, we just have to make that choice. I've said this a long time ago, but I'll use this example again. So my father-in-law, he has a farm in Ohio, and you and I are both from Ohio, so we kind of get farming in some ways. And he has a very nasty job for his cows, right? And this is the job. He goes and he takes his little bobcat and he cleans out the muck, which is manure and the poop, right, from the stalls. And then he puts it in a place in the side of the field. I want to tell you this. That is what adversity looks like, a bunch of muck and poop on the side of the field. However, if you just let it sit there and don't do anything with it, it just smells and nasty and creates all kinds of problems. However, if you take that very adversity, that muck and that poop, and you spread it out over something, it becomes fertilizer to grow something greater. So adversity in many ways is like the poop of life. Pardon the 8th grade use of that. I have an 11-year-old son now who poop is one of his favorite jokes still. But it's what you do with it that matters. And so when adversity comes in, it's only if you allow God to spread it across our life and our faith to grow, will something grow out of it.
Yeah. And I've got a 7-year-old who also loves that word. And so I am grateful that he probably will not see this today because he would be using that word a lot. So.
Well, if we're truthful as men, it does take a whole lot longer for it to grow out of us than it should.
True. So. Yep. So let's talk about this weekend. We're starting a new series this weekend. What's coming down the pipe Sunday morning in terms of that specific message, or maybe what, give us an overview of the next series that we're going to jump into. What can we expect to come down the pipe?
So this next series is really going to deal with the reality that too often in our lives, our faith, it more gets emboldened or strengthened, or we work on it when we're reacting to different or difficult scenarios or adversity, right? But what if we had a faith forward, right? We acted in faith and we grew our faith and we walked with God and we practiced some spiritual discipline so that when adversity came, because it's not a question of if adversity ever comes, it's only a matter of when and how big, right? We were better prepared. An analogy that I use, and I think we've talked about this before, Jim, is that like, you know what? If I go to the doctor and the doctor tells me I have type 2 diabetes, which I don't currently, right?
Right.
He's probably not going to tell me anything I don't know. Brian, you're eating too much sugar. You're not eating properly. You're not exercising, whatever it might be. Information I already know, right? Mm-hmm. Well, okay. At that point, usually that's when people change after they're, given a type 2 diabetes. Now, it's horrible if you don't change after that.
Right.
But what would it be like if we said, hey, we know that if we don't do this, this is what's going to happen. And we were better be proactive. I know that's why you like to get out and jog. Like, listen, as we get older, things slow down, right? And we got to be more preventative instead of reactive. And I think in some ways, what we're trying to call people to do is that COVID has revealed for a lot of us, our faith is extremely reactive, mm-hmm. right? We only gin it up and hit it when we feel like something really bad is going on. But what about the premise that it would seem a whole lot less difficult or challenging if we grew our faith in times of non-adversity? Yeah. So we're going to talk about what to have a faith forward, and we're going to be kicked off. Pastor Chris is going to kind of give us sort of a prophetic call this Sunday to get in our heads, to help us and get in our hearts and think about why we are or why we're not doing certain things. And even if we haven't done it, we can always start today. So that's
right. Yeah, you can always. The great thing about that is you can always start today. I mean, it's you mentioned the health diagnosis. It might be bad, but you can always start today. And if you start today, it's better than starting tomorrow. So that's great. That's great advice. So you can join us right here on Facebook, on YouTube, and the app. If you're watching us on the app podcast, you will see all the information will be there as well. And you can connect with us any of those ways, live on Sunday morning at 9:30 and 11, or on demand throughout the week. So we hope that you have a good afternoon wherever you're watching from. And have a good afternoon, Pastor Brian.
Hey. Jim, enjoy it, and hope the Cubs win today.
So, I do too.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any score yet, but
yeah.
Go Cubs. So, all right, have a good day.
You too.